Hey guys! Today we're going to talk about bookmaking in art class. Bookmaking has been around for a very long time, and many people used to make their books a long time ago. Back before books were printed at factories, people used to hand make their books. And I know that we've made one kind of book before in art class, and I would love to show you a different kind of bookmaking. This one requires a couple more materials, but it's super cool because you will be able to add a lot more pages. You could probably add as many pages as you wanted into your book. So what you'll need today for your bookmaking is you'll want some sort of a piece of cardboard or something hard for the outside, the front and back cover of your book. And then you will need paper, of course, to go inside of your book. It could be any kind of paper. It could be colored paper or lined paper or white paper. And then you're going to want to have some sort of string or yarn, a hole puncher, and then if you want to decorate the cover of your book, you'll need something to decorate the cover of your book with. So follow along with this video, and hopefully you give bookmaking a try today. Okay, so I am going to use yarn, white paper, cardboard for my book, and then I'm going to decorate with crayons today. I also have scissors and a hole puncher, and then I have a pencil to help me because I have to do some tracing. Okay, so the first thing that I need to do is I need to prepare my cardboard covers, so the front and the back of my book. I need to make sure that they're the same size. So I'm going to line up the straightest edges that I can find on my pieces of cardboard, and then I'm going to draw a line where I need to cut. So I'm going to use my scissors, and I'm just going to cut off any extra, and I'm going to make sure the edges are nice and straight on my book. Okay, then what I need to do is I need to take my paper. So I have a couple sheets of paper, and I'm going to stack them together, and then I need to trace around my piece of cardboard. I want to do that carefully so that my pages will fit inside of my book. And I'm going to trace mine as many times as I can fit it on my paper. So one tip is I'm going to line my cardboard up with the edge of my paper so that I don't have to cut those sides. The more you line it up with the edges, the less cutting that you have to do. So that's cool. And then there'll be really straight edges of your paper. Next, I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. So now that I have my pieces of paper cut out, I'm going to start hole punching. So I personally wanted to have 3 holes in mine. You could have more or less. I'm going to put them kind of spaced out, and I'm just hole punching one piece of paper right now. This one's going to be the one that I use to measure all the rest of the holes of my papers. So I'm going to take a couple of pieces of paper, not too many, and I'm going to line up my papers, and then I'm going to hole punch those holes on the next pieces of paper. And then I'm going to add a couple more because it's too hard to hole punch all of those papers at the same time. There's too many. So I'm going to try to line my hole puncher up and punch my hole. Line it up. And that way I know that my hole punch holes will be lined up, so when I make my book, they'll be all straight. So now if it's too many in your hand, you can just take that top one off that we did first, and then you can line those up with your next ones. So I'm going to just finish up the rest. Okay, the last thing that I want to do before we start putting our book together is I want to hole punch the holes on my cover and my front and back cover. So I'm going to take that one piece of paper that I started with, and I'm actually going to use a pencil this time because it's hard to get it lined up on the cardboard. So I'm going to draw a circle where those hole punches should be on my front and back piece of cardboard, and then I'm going to just punch those holes out. So I'm going to line it up the best that I can with my hole puncher, and I'm going to punch those holes too. So it doesn't have to be cardboard. It could be like a thicker piece of paper, or it could even just be a piece of paper that you use for your front and back cover. I kind of liked the cardboard feel because it made it feel kind of like a front cover and a back cover of a book. So they line up. I'm going to take my pieces of paper and kind of stack them and see how my holes line up. And then I'll be able to put those into my cover. Just like that. Now I need to make it stay. So I'm also gonna bend it a little just so that when I go to open my book, it will bend, kind of like how books do, just because cardboard's a little bit thick and I wanna make sure it's able to open easily. So I'm just kind of bending right by the holes a little bit. Okay, next what I'm gonna do is I'm going to attach all my papers and my cover together using some yarn. So I'm just pulling off like a long piece of yarn and cutting it into 3 different pieces. It doesn't really matter the length as long as they're long enough to be able to be tied. So this part is a little bit tricky. You're going to want to put all of that first hole, that top hole, onto your piece of yarn. So if you could do a couple pieces of paper at a time, I tried to do all of the pieces of paper and found that I needed to kind of separate them a little bit. So I'm gonna pull through a little bit at a time and just kind of stick them on there. So remember, if your yarn starts to get frayed at the end, that you can kind of twist it together to make it pointy again. And once I have all of my pieces on, then I'm gonna tie my yarn like I tie my shoe. Tie it tight. And I'm gonna tie one more time. I'm just gonna tie them in a knot. I'm not gonna do a bow today. You could do a bow if you want. So I'm just gonna repeat that for the next couple. I will say the last hole was the hardest to get through everything because there's not a lot of wiggle room in there, but you just gotta give it a try. And the last thing that I did was I decorated my cover with some crayons. So here's what my book looked like when it was finished. You can see I have the ties on the edge there. I decorated the cover, and then because I folded that cardboard, it opens really easily and I have lots of pages in there, so I could use this as a sketchbook or a journal, or I could give it as a gift. Pretty much anything I want. Hopefully you give it a try.